chance. I'm trying to make these as professional as I can, but I'm still learning as we go, and record in my house, and there might be some sounds that sound like I'm murdering the dog in the background, the household dog. I promise I am not. He is just a dramatic boy. And he'll be fine for the time in which I am recording this. And we're going to pick up with chapter 13, and not quite the aftermath, but what comes after Jez, Jesse, and Rye's time as playwrights. So let's get going. Chapter 13. That was our first play. I'm sure I didn't do it justice at all, and some of it might be a you had to be there sort of thing, but we had a lot of fun with it, and it was a great stress reliever. After I finished the whole story, maybe we could try and tell the whole thing. I bet I remember all the parts. We certainly spent enough time with it. That would be cool, Dave said. It sounded really fun. It was. Just what we needed. Guess it's probably a good time to get some shut-eye and some necessary beauty sleep, Jay said, smiling. Speak for yourself, I shot back. Dave groaned half-heartedly, but settled against his sister without further protest. I debated, and then carefully wedged myself into my corner. The cell floor had been worn smooth over the years, but my cuts and scrapes were not a fan. At least this way I wouldn't shift in my sleep and make it worse. I woke early, sometime around dawn, from the weak light filtering in through the window. Using the bars on the door, I pulled myself to my feet and carefully stretched out, making sure to take extra care with the sore spots. I had just finished when I heard footsteps approaching the cell. Apparently, I wasn't the only early riser in Greensward Prison this morning. I peeked out, spotting Shorty and the brutes before stepping back. I reached out and nudged Jay with my foot. He woke with a start and blinked owlishly until the footsteps filtered in. Then he rolled away from Stella before standing up in an attempt to not wake her. I was sure it would all be for naught, considering Shorty wasn't likely to show the same courtesy. Is our buddy getting smarter? He asked quietly, joining me. We're just impatient, I said, and shrugged. It could easily be one or both of those options. It made sense to interrogate someone as soon as they woke up. Most people weren't at full mental capacity first thing in the morning. Reese also didn't strike me as the most patient of people. It was Stella who spoke up next, and probably had it right. Maybe he's getting some pressure from the top. It was true that we were the only potential freedom fighters they'd captured, so they'd want as much out of us as possible. She smiled at the unasked question in my eyes, sitting up. My cold back woke me up. I returned it as Shorty reached the door. Jay. He inserted the keys and started to open it. From his glare, he seemed less than thrilled to find us already awake. I decided pissing him off more couldn't hurt, so I grabbed the door and pushed it back towards him. Wait a minute, Shorty, I told him. He huffed, drawing himself to his full height, which wasn't much. My name is Dayton. I said, wait a minute, Shorty. Yeah, you're interrupting the morning seance. Gotta commune with the dead every day or they'll leave your spirit behind, Jay said. One of the brutes growled, but Shorty held him back, seemingly curious about what we were up to, despite the blatant disrespect. I think you should ask him why, but make sure you time it right. Righto, when I'm about to get punched, ask the hard stuff. Got it, he said, tossing me an irreverent salute. Good luck. Jay nodded and turned to the door, sketching a quick bow to those waiting. Thank you ever so much for your patience, he said, false sincerity oozing from every pore. He then pulled open the door and stepped out to join them, glancing back just long enough for me to see the spark of fear in his eyes. I shot him a thumbs up, which he returned with a trademark doll family grin. I watched him go before settling back in my corner. Stella and I chatted quietly as she explained in more detail the night they were captured. Dave remained silent, attention darting from our conversation to the cell door and back again. Jay finally returned, almost an hour later, and slumped to the floor. He remembered where he bruised last time, and they hadn't exactly had time to heal. Here, we saved you breakfast, I said, offering him the remains. Thanks, he mumbled, as Stella settled carefully next to him. I glanced at Dave, not surprised to find the drawn, worried look back on his face. Don't worry, kid. Jay and I have lots of experience healing ourselves. Still, he said, scrunching down. I patted his shoulder. Hey, guess what? He eyed me. What? We're almost to the part where Jay comes into the story. I turned my grin on my friend. Then he can tell parts and save my voice. I like your voice better than mine. Like I care. He stuck his tongue out at me, which was one of the most reassuring things he could have done to convince me he was okay. Well, you should, as my vocal cords are too important to waste on something as mundane as telling stories. If I had something to throw at you, I said, picking up my spoon threateningly. You wouldn't do that, because I'm an invalid. Doesn't seem like it with the way your mouth is going. Then, because you love me? He tried. God's breath, you two are like an old married couple, Stella said, exasperated. We tended to have that effect on people. I'm not intruding, am I? I had to laugh. I happened to learn from the best how to come out with a snappy retort. But no, Jay is absolutely all yours. Yeah, Jess has got her bow bear. I stared at him. Jay, I would pay money to watch Beau's expression when you called him that, and the carnage that would follow. Dave giggled, good humor restored. Aw, he wouldn't hurt me that bad. After all, you would protect me. In your dreams. All right. At the risk of sounding like my brother, can we get back to the story already? Stella said. You two are going to drive me up a wall. Jay had the grace to look sheepish. Sorry, Stella. What are we waiting for? Dave demanded. Stella smacked him gently in the back of the head. Please? He added. I rolled my eyes. Part of this, Jesse and Rye filled me in later. And here we go. I picked it up from where I'd left off. Stories of the play somehow made it as far as many of the contacts spread throughout the country because Cole's next message asked for a picture. Beau's response was to spew a collection of impressively colorful curses and then glare at everyone, especially his good friends, for the next 20 minutes. I hate you all. All of you, he mumbled. Mick squashed a smile, but did let go enough to wink at Jez. You're allowed to hate us, she said. He glanced suspiciously up from his paperwork. Since you actually did it and did a fine job. What she wants to say is that you looked fine too, but wouldn't dream of it, Jessie threw in from where she and Rye played cards in the corner. Jez flushed instantly red and looked at the floor. Beau, meanwhile, smiled for the first time since receiving Cole's message, but also looked away. At Jessie's reproving look, he blushed. You're both so darned... Pig-headed? Rye suggested. Stubborn, Mick put in. Stupid? Rye tried, snickering. I need to, go see Reardon, Jez said, beating a hasty retreat. Mick rolled his eyes and trailed her out of the room. I told you our conversation wasn't finished, Jessie told Beau. I was hoping I could put it off a little bit longer. Jessie stood, brushing off her pants as she came and perched on the edge of his desk. Why? She asked, as Rye glanced up from the cards, plainly curious. I'm not sure she's ready, and I don't know, Jessie, I don't know anything when it comes to this. You'll never know if she's ready unless you ask, Rye said. Even after Bry, I would say Jez doesn't know a whole lot more than you. She's obviously nervous too, Beau, but neither of you are going to be comfortable or be able to be yourselves while doing this dance. Plus, it's very obnoxious from the outside. But, Beau, just ask her. How? Jez, will you go out with me? Might work wonders, Rye said dryly. Beau, do it any damn way that feels right. Bry and Jez were cute, yes, but there's something very right about you two. I firmly believe you need to be together. It's not like she won't say yes, unless you're an idiot about it. Thanks a lot for the vote of confidence, he said nervously. Oh, just ask already. But, Jessie sighed, I'm going to go find her and drag her back here. Then you two are going to talk. You will figure this out. Then, Rye and I will let you out of this room, but not a moment before. Come on, Rye. Riley grinned and shot him a thumbs up as she followed Jessie. A couple minutes later, Jez was forcefully propelled into the room. Hey, she said, unable to make eye contact. Hey. Neither of them spoke for an uncomfortable minute. What's up with those two? Jez finally asked, jerking a thumb over her shoulder. They're annoyed at us. Ah. Beau waited, but she didn't ask why, even as she continued to find the rest of his room interesting. Jez, come on, look at me. This isn't us. Her brown eyes came around to meet his. They're not letting us out of here until we talk about it. He took a deep breath. I'm not sure there's a lot to talk about. I like you, he said, and I enjoy spending time with you. And I know it's only been a few months, but Jessie is right. I can't not tell you how I feel. Like? She repeated. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair in clear agitation. What? Would you rather say I fell in love with you within days of you being up and functional? Because I can, if you want. Only if it's the truth, she said softly. He held her gaze. Her lips quirked up in a smile, and she reached out, patting down the hair he'd just spiked. I like you, too. Oh, really? He asked, standing and stepping around the desk so that they were eye to eye. Mm-hmm, she said, heartbeat speeding up, despite her fight to maintain a cool demeanor. They stared at each other without moving. Then, Beau slid forward, threaded a hand through her hair, and pressed his lips to hers. She started, but snaked her arms around his neck with little hesitation. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were dancing. Well, that was unexpected, she drawled. But not unwelcome, I hope, he said, nerves instantly flaring again. No, definitely not unwelcome. She kept her arms around him and grinned. Guess this'll make our friends quite happy. He had to return it. It makes me quite happy. True. Concern sparked in her eyes. Nothing really needs to change much, right? Except I like to think I have permission to occasionally kiss you, he said dryly. She laughed. I think I can manage that. She tucked a lock of hair behind his ear. I didn't mean that quite the way it came out. It's just... We don't need to be overly showy about it? Exactly. I agree. We'd probably kill a lot of people with shock if we tried it. If you tried, she corrected mildly. He made a face. Are you two okay in there? Rye demanded from outside. It's gone awfully quiet. There's hopefully a good reason for that, Jessie said. Oh, some Kissing, Rye asked. You two can shut up any time, Jez called, and let us out. Both of them peeked in. Do you have a good reason to let you out? You know, Beau's the captain. He could order you to let us out. I could, and have you drawn up on insubordination charges and strung up as an example to the rest of our fine crew or something. You wouldn't do that, Rye said dismissively. Well? The pair exchanged a glance, and then Jez grabbed the back of Beau's head and kissed him firmly. Rye let out a whoop as Jessie beamed at them. Beau rubbed his neck when he pulled back. That was unnecessarily violent. You can't say you didn't enjoy it, she retorted easily. He shrugged, unable to argue the point. Are we allowed to leave now? Thank the gods you finally figured it out, Jessie said. Come on, Rye, let's leave them to whatever they were doing before. She grabbed the teen by the collar and hustled her back out of the room. Jez smirked after them, leaning against him. You look far too pleased with yourself. Is there any reason I shouldn't be? You've got a smug look going, too. Point. As usual, I'm full of them. Beau laughed. In the days that followed, word spread like wildfire around the camp, and no one seemed particularly surprised. Jez started spending more nights with Beau. Although they did nothing except cuddled, she was reassured by his presence and found the nightmares less severe when he was curled up against her. She also found it refreshing that, at night, when everyone else was asleep, she could be both Jasmine and Jez. Ren had zoned out, brain feeling sluggish, when his door opened again. Good morning, Ren. It took a moment to drag his attention back, and even then, the world swam a bit. I think he might have a concussion, Annie said. I'm fine, Ren said, forcing himself to pay attention. The more time he spent awake, though, the more he couldn't ignore that the world didn't feel quite right. Did Vlad slam you into the wall? Sorin's matter-of-fact tone disturbed Ren, but he couldn't quite decide why. Only once. Sorin snorted. Only once will do it. Annie, I trust you'll keep an eye on him for the next couple of days while he recovers from that? She nodded. Will you look at his ankle and ribs, too? Of course. Let's start with the ankle. He knelt, then rolled his eyes as Ren automatically tucked it behind his good leg. Rainier, I can't help if I can't see it. It's fine. Sorin regarded him. Ren, he finally said quietly, I may not have been on the receiving end of Vlad's fists, but that doesn't mean I don't know the damage a human can do. I can tell from here that it's not fine. Please let me see it. A combination of things, including Vlad's nickname and the please, got to Ren, and he pulled it out. Sorin smiled faintly and then prodded at it, surprisingly gentle. Ren gritted his teeth at the pain, flinching. Hold still. It hurts, he managed, then immediately felt sheepish as Sorin sent him a pointed look. Of course it does. Annie's brother sat back on his heels. I don't think it's broken, but it's at least a nasty sprain. Best put you on crutches for a while. He eyed him. He lost his cool, didn't he? Ren shrugged. I baited him. You've done that before without this. He glanced between the siblings. Yeah, but I got in a good few shots myself, he added cheerfully, not liking the looks on their faces, including a shot to the groin. Seems like he deserved it, Sorin said, getting to his feet and brushing off his knees. Ren blinked at him. Certainly he had not heard correctly. Although, he reasoned, nothing the siblings did should surprise him anymore, if just for the fact their dynamics seemed to be ever-changing. The ribs? Annie prompted from where she hovered nervously at his shoulder. I'm getting to those, he said, looking a bit amused. Shirt off, Ren. Are you sure it's just a sprain? Fairly, Sorin told her, as Ren clutched his shirt tighter to him. He'd have reacted a lot stronger to my poking if it was broken. What's the problem now, Rainier? You'll just laugh at my scrawny chest. That might be the most asinine thing you have ever said. It's true. I don't laugh at broken ribs, Sorin said. Now take it off, or I'll have Anika do it for you. Your choice. His sister brightened at the prospect, which was all the incentive Ren needed to tug it off, wincing. Sorin let out a low whistle. God's breath, he really wasn't pulling his punches, he muttered quietly enough Ren was certain he wasn't supposed to hear that. You're right. It is a little scrawny, he said instead, perching next to Ren on the bed and examining his chest with more poking and prodding. The prince clenched his hands in an effort to not react to the pain. Gee, thanks, he ground out. Sorin shot Ren an amused look. It makes sense. The heaviest thing you've picked up in the last 2 years is probably a book. Your muscle tone would obviously suffer. After a moment, he nodded. Definitely broken. He pantomimed a punch. He got you right there at point-blank range, didn't he? Ren nodded, disturbed that Sorin could read the injury that accurately. It's still pretty. Both of them looked up to find Annie staring a bit dreamily at Ren's chest. Sorin choked on a laugh as Ren flushed. Sensing their scrutiny, Annie went wide-eyed. Oops, did that come out loud? She grinned briefly at the pair. So, what do we do about it, Sorin? I'll go get some bandages and patch the prince up. Then we yell at Vladimir for being an idiot. I'm going to nominate you for yelling at Vlad. I can manage that. You keep Ren company while I go get some supplies. Ren watched him go, then turned to Annie. Any chance you could explain Sorin to me? He, of all of them, still confused Ren the most, especially recently. She pursed her lips. Sorin's complicated. I'd gotten that much. She flopped into his chair. Sorin used to be my rock, the one person I could always rely on. She ran her hand along the chair's arm. I guess, in some ways, he still is, but it's been different since he came home from school when he was 15. I think we both changed by then, and we could never manage to make the changes. We couldn't get past them to find common ground anymore. Then he left, and that was that. You saw him after that, though, right? Yeah, sometimes, but never for long enough to even try and really talk. It was always at a function, until he came back permanently, but he was so different then. Her brow furrowed, and she glanced again at the door. He's changing again, though. The Sorin we just saw, he's the closest to my brother that I've seen in a very long time, and it's not the first flash. And Vlad? Annie didn't answer, gaze fixed on the doorway. Do you think we're being watched? He asked softly, when it became apparent she wasn't going to. And honestly, no answer to that question was enough. Annie shrugged, dragging herself back to the present. Probably. Why? I need you to send a letter for me. Oh? You've heard Sorin's theory on the leader of the freedom fighters? She nodded, understanding breaking across her face. You're sending a letter to your brother. Only if you'll do it for me. I know it's a lot to ask, but... Come on, Rennie. It's not like you know any crazy secrets, she said, standing nonchalantly, meandering over so she was between him and the peephole. He slid the letter out from under his sheets and passed it to her. She slipped it out of sight. I'll get it out as soon as I can figure out a way. Your brother's group aren't the easiest people to find. Guess that means he's doing his job. She smiled briefly. Guess so, she agreed, perching on the bed next to him. Did you know we met before all of this? We did? He asked, attempting to quickly filter through his various brief meetings with Sorin and Vlad prior to their takeover, but nothing stuck out. That had been a lifetime ago now. Yeah, in passing. Your father was hosting a ball, and Vlad let me come. I was 18 at the time, and somehow Sorin ended up in charge of me. I think Vlad had business to attend to since he was running the business by then. I wanted so badly to dance with you, but Sorin insisted you wouldn't look twice at me since I was just some merchant's little sister. I wanted to ask anyway. I was so sure he was wrong. She studied him. Was he? Generally. If I hadn't danced with you, it would have nothing to do with the fact you were a merchant's little sister. As a matter of fact, I liked Sorin all right in those days, and your family's business was widespread, so for that reason it would have made sense to. I think you like Sorin all right these days, too, she said softly. We do have our moments. Oddly enough, Sorin said dryly from the doorway. All right, Ren, time to bandage you up. The prince shifted to face him, rolling his eyes as Annie got up and moved around so she could continue ogling his chest. Sorin went to work and pulled the bandages tight around his rib cage. Ow! Ren yelped. That hurt! The other man rolled his eyes. Ren, if I don't tie it tightly, it won't do you any good. This way, it helps keep it stiff so the bones will know what shape to maintain as they heal. If my ribs heal in this shape, I'll be deformed. Well, I'm sure my sister will like you anyway. Foot up on the bed. Ren tugged his shirt back on even as he rotated and carefully placed his damaged ankle on the bed, wincing at the contact with the sheets. I liked it better off, Annie commented. Well, I appreciate the sentiment. There wasn't much to see. It was still pretty. Then, ow! Damn it, Sorin! He protested, jerking his foot out of reach. What was that for? Sorin smirked, grabbing his calf and pulling the foot back over to him. Just ensuring it wasn't broken. Damn well might be now, Ren muttered. Sorin ignored him, carefully wrapping up Ren's ankle and immobilizing it. Look, it's a nasty sprain, Ren, so it's going to take a while to heal. Oh, good. Well, I have all the time in the world. Sorin shot him an amused look. I'll see if I can find you some crutches so you can still be at least somewhat mobile. I know Vlad promised you and Annie a stroll at least once a week. I'll check it periodically, but for now, no weight on it at all. Understand? Yes, sir. He snorted. You don't fool me, Ren. I'm serious. Stay off it for your own good. Annie, make sure he behaves himself, okay? She grinned. With pleasure. I'll speak to Vladimir later. Thanks, Ren felt beholden to say, considering. Sorin favored him with a crooked smile. It's no trouble at all, he said, and Ren got the feeling that there was a lot more behind his words that weren't spoken, although he couldn't, for the life of him, figure out what. You two behave, he told them, and then vanished from the room. You're right, Ren said, after a moment of thoughtful silence. I think I do like Sorin all right these days. Chapter 14. Ready to start helping, Jay? I asked, taking a sip of water. Oh, I suppose, if I must, he sighed. How long had you and Beau been a couple before I arrived? Officially? Only about 2 months or so. We never really paid that much attention. It's easy to lose track of time at Cavern Hall, at least accurately, I said, directing the last part towards Stella and Dave. Makes sense, Stella said. I think we would have had the same issues on the farm if David hadn't been in school. That forced us to keep track of the days of the week, so we made sure he went. Dave wrinkled his nose at the reminder. I would have been fine without school, he said. George was teaching me all the important things for the farm. She smiled. It's good to know more than just how to slaughter a pig. She ruffled his hair. Irritably, he patted it back down. Stell, he complained. I could see my best friend brighten at the nickname and suspected we'd be hearing a lot more of it. He opened his mouth, and I decided to cut him off at the pass. James, I really hate that you can do that to me now. Personally, I'm a fan. It's rather embarrassing, he trailed off and eyed me. You aren't going to tell about my first morning, are you? Of course I am. I think Stella in particular will enjoy that one. He squirmed. Do you have to? It's not one of my more brilliant moments. You have brilliant moments? Stella asked before I could. I snickered at his wounded look. Stella, you're not helping. I definitely want to hear this now. How about I just pick up from later? He suggested hopefully. We can't skip things, I told him. Stella and Dave deserve the whole story. Jay heaved a sigh. Fine, but no mocking me afterwards. We promise not to do it much, Dave said, crossing his heart with an exaggerated motion. Why do I not trust you? He muttered. Look, you do that morning, since I don't think I can manage to spit it out, and then I'll pick up from there? I grinned. Sounds good to me. That means your embarrassment will be conveyed properly. I picked a good place to start, and continued. There were 2 skirmishes in the couple months following, but for the most part, the 3 had pulled their men back to concentrate on the borders. Both Nerys and Alia, Tira's 2 contentious neighbors, had taken advantage of the siblings' preoccupation with destroying the freedom fighters to poach Tira's borders. The 3 found themselves playing catch-up, and, in some places, in pitched battle to defend those same borders. In the south, at least Nerys had made serious inroads, and were happily holding quite a bit of Tiran land. However, in that time, the freedom fighters had almost doubled again. The military operations being run were not at all sensitive to the needs or wants of the common people, so more found themselves having negative encounters with the siblings or their people. Jez, Bry, and Jessie gained 2 new roommates, Duncan's friend Kilo and another woman, Anne. As Cavern Hall filled with people, pushed almost to the bursting point. The only good thing in this arrangement was, for the time being, Beau got to keep his office to himself, so Jez had an easy escape from the crowded rooms. One morning, Jez poked her head into Beau's office to ask him something, and found him shaking hands with a man about her age. Hey, you! Good timing, Beau said, flashing her a smile. Jez, this is Jay. He just arrived this morning. Jay, Jez. Beau still made a point of meeting each new recruit, or group of them, personally. Jez studied him as she offered her hand. There was something about the look on his face that told her Jay would get along well with her and the others. Nice to meet you. Pleasure's all mine. Captain Beau was just telling me that he wanted to introduce us. Was he really? She asked, glancing at Beau. He was indeed, Beau said. I was wondering if you might show him around. I suspect you, Jay, Rye, and Jessie will all get along well. Can do. I had a question for you, but it can wait until later. Dinner? Deal. Come on, Jay. Thank you, Captain. Jez made a face. People still call you that? You do realize that everyone except Mick and Reardon did until you came along. Details. Jay, to keep Beau from getting a swelled opinion of himself, we've dropped the captain title. The new man held up his hands. Don't bring me into this. She laughed. Come on, I'll introduce you to Rye and Jessie. She led the way towards their rooms, suspecting the others might be there. So, why'd you join? She asked, seeking to create conversation. A very good friend of mine joined almost 2 years ago. He died at Deepen's Crossing. I have no love lost for the 3, and not much to keep me at home, so I figured I'd join. Honor his memory and all that. Jez nodded, not probing further. That was a common enough tale, and they'd lost plenty of good people at Deepen's Crossing, many whom she hadn't even known well. I'm sorry. He shrugged. You move on. She smiled briefly, agreeing wholeheartedly with the sentiment. True. So, are there a lot of cliques here? Not many. People usually have a couple really close friends, but there's a lot of movement between groups. There's a little less recently, since we're growing so fast right now, but it works, and no one's excluded. She'd helped make sure of that, considering how lost she'd initially felt. They reached her room, and she peeked in, past the curtain dividing it from the hallway, and grinned. Hey, friends! She pushed the cloth aside, gesturing Jay in. Jessie, Rye, this is Jay, our newest recruit. Beau asked me to show him around. The pair looked up from their card game, and then Jessie stood, offering her hand. Hi, Jay. I'm Jessie, and this miscreant is Rye or Rylia. Does she even answer to Rylia anymore? I do, Rye said indignantly. Just not quickly. Hello, Jay said, and nodded towards the cards. What are you playing? War. He took them in. Jessie's winning. Rye rolled her eyes. Don't remind me. You also just switched a small pile of the cards while she was shaking my hand, so now you're winning. Jessie's mouth dropped open. Why you? How in the name of the gods did you see that? The teen sputtered. Nice sleight of hand, he said, nodding approvingly. Where'd you learn a trick like that? Street hustling, when I was a kid. No one's supposed to be able to see it. Where'd you learn to spot it? Just quick reflexes, he said with a shrug. Always had 'em. And eyes. Sheesh, Rylia muttered, giving back the stack of cards. I'm starting to understand why I always lose when we're playing in Beau's office, Jessie said with narrowed eyes. Rye grinned charmingly. I have no idea why that might be. Cross my heart. Jez clapped Jay on the back. I think Beau was right. You're going to fit right in with us. Yeah, welcome to the club. Club? Yeah, we help keep up morale, and we're tight with the leadership. Except Mick. Mick likes us, he just won't say it. Jay brightened. Any single female leadership? Jessie? Rye and Jez chorused at the same time, expressions dancing with mischief. Wait, what? Jessie sputtered, as Jay grabbed her hand and gallantly kissed it. It is a pleasure to meet you, Jessie, he said with basically big puppy eyes. As Rye burst out laughing, Beau appeared at Jez's shoulder, kissing her on the cheek before taking in the chaos. Well, Jay's fitting in even better than expected, he said dryly. You have no idea, Jez chuckled. The next morning, the three women joined Mick and Duncan at the table for breakfast. Rye grinned from ear to ear as Mick glanced at her curiously. Swimming day, she announced. Scouts, soon after they'd arrived, discovered a large pond not far from Cavern Hall. With the three's presence gone from the woods, Beau allowed small groups to hike to the pond and swim each day. The rules were simple. Someone always had to be out of the water, armed, and they had to keep the noise level down, just in case. Even for Jez's friends, these were easy enough to follow. We should invite Jay, Jez suggested. We have room for one more, assuming you're still coming, Dunk. I'm there, the other man said. Do we have to? Jessie asked. He's a bit much. Rye laughed. Don't worry, Jessie. Either he'll realize you aren't interested, or you'll start to like him. She smirked. After all, you're 2 years older than Jez, and she's already managed 2 boyfriends since she got here. Duncan snorted into his coffee as Mick rolled his eyes. Is this conversation necessary? The others ignored him as Jez whacked Rye on the back of the head. Shush you. Duncan, will you go wake him up and get him in here? Duncan bit his lip to keep from laughing, pushing back from the table. He's in my room, as a matter of fact. I'll go get him. He reappeared a couple minutes later, scooping up his plate and glass and moving to the next table over. Dunk? Jez asked. I don't think he appreciated my method of waking him, Duncan said, radiating innocence. Jay shuffled in then, searching out Duncan to favor him with a dark glare. Morning, sunshine, Rye said. He mumbled something indistinct as he grabbed food and plopped down beside Mick. They lapsed into amused silence, listening to Jay's grumbles. We're going swimming today, and we're wondering if you wanted to join us, Jez finally said. Jay looked up. Swimming? Yeah, you know, in the water. You, me, Duncan, Rye, and Jessie. There was a pause, and then a grin crept across his face. Is it? No, it's not skinny dipping, Jez interrupted, barely certain that's where he was going. Damn, there goes all the fun. You know, Jez, you take all the joy out of the world when you say things like that. Good, Jessie said fervently, cheeks a bit redder than usual. Mick smirked, speaking up. I think it's way too early in the morning for that sort of thought, Jay. The newcomer glanced at him, seeming to notice him for the first time. I don't think we've been introduced. Mick, the second in command. Jay's eyes bulged and he turned scarlet. Sorry, sir, he managed meekly. Jessie, Jez, and Rye were cracking up. Mick, as usual, managed to maintain a straight face. I do realize it's important to make a strong first impression, but I'm not sure that was quite the way to do it. Jay swallowed. Yes, sir, he said, and then looked at the women in hopes that they might spare him. Swimming now? He asked plaintively. It took another hour for them to be ready and head out. By then, Jay was fully recovered and awake. Duncan. No, it's Duncan. Like kin. As your relatives. Relations? Family? Duncan. Dunk sighed in frustration and appealed to the girls for help. Don't even try, Jess told him. He's plainly doing it just to annoy you, because I won't let him get actual revenge for the wake-up call this morning. Bri used to pull the same shenanigans all the time. Or maybe I'm just that stupid. Bri rolled her eyes. She was trying to help you, idiot. Oh, right. My apologies, Duncan. Oh, never mind, he growled. How about we call him Dunk, and then no one has an issue? Jessie asked, plainly in a foul temper over Jay's inclusion. The newcomer bondered over to her. Someone woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning, he said sagely. I didn't, but I'm heading that way, Jessie said. Someone else got over his poor manners this morning, Rye muttered to Jez and Dunk. Oh, I get it, Jay bounced to her other side. You're actually hopelessly smitten with me and just don't know how to break the news. She stopped dead and stared at him. Smitten would not be the first word that comes to mind. That's what they all say. All? Rye repeated. Jay ignored her. Don't worry, I can wait until you're ready. Would anyone mind terribly if I killed him? It'd be a shame if he was a freedom fighter for less than a day, Jez pointed out. I can handle death threats. It's a start. He crossed his arms behind his head smugly. A moment later, though, he was catching himself from sprawling full out in the dirt. It was Jessie's turn to look smug. Best watch your step there, hotshot, she told him, sauntering past. Jay stared after her. She does like me. Duncan shook his head and offered the other man a hand. Just keep telling yourself that if it helps you sleep better at night. I think I will. He dusted himself off. She initiated physical contact. Rye choked on a laugh as she tried to keep it in. She's completely capable of maiming you for life. I'll take my chances. Jez whacked him lightly in the back of the head as she passed. Keep dreaming, killer. My turn, Jay interrupted gleefully. I gave him a look. Seriously? That's how we're going to play this? You hadn't taken a breath, and I want to go, he whined. Stella was clearly trying not to laugh. Dave was snickering. I sighed. Fine, I'll try and take more deep breaths to let you butt in. Why, thank you. Wait, Stella managed. You and Jessie? He grinned. Oh, it never happened. And honestly, it's definitely for the best. With that, he picked up the story for the first time. Jay shrugged, not particularly concerned, and let the others draw ahead. The reference to Brighton, by nickname no less, shouldn't have surprised him, but it had caught him off guard anyway, especially the fondness in Jez's voice. Beau had warned him that Jessie, Rye, and Jez had been Bry's best friends at the camp. He watched them for a minute, wondering if he could handle it, but a part of him thought he could. Even if he wasn't ready to tell them who he was yet, it made him feel closer to the brother he'd known growing up. The one who turned around and abandoned him immediately after their parents' murder. He took a deep breath to contain the anger that surged in him at the thought of his brother's desertion. They'd been a team growing up, and Jay had assumed they would always be a team. Then Bry had left, merely leaving a note that said Jay was too young to follow. Jay, come see, Rye called, ignoring the others as they shushed her. He brought himself back to the present, and realized he'd fallen further behind than he'd thought, so he trotted to catch up. He came to a stop next to the team, taking in the pond. At the far end, there was a small beach, half rock and half sand. Where they stood was perhaps a 3-foot drop to the deepest end of the water. Rye peered over. It's about 15 feet deep here, we figure. It's fun to jump in, but I prefer to wade in and get wet first. Really? Yup. The four of them studied the pond as Duncan made his way towards the beach to take first watch. Good idea, Jay said as she turned to walk away. In one quick movement, he snatched her around the stomach and tossed her calmly, clothes and all, into the water. She yelped before hitting and going under. Jay brushed his hands off and turned just in time to see 2 hands firmly connect with his chest. He flew off the edge of the rock and hit the water with a loud splash, immediately going under. He came to the surface, sputtering, spotting Jessie at the top, grinning down at him. Before he could come up with a proper retort, Rye jumped him from behind, shoving him back underwater. The two commenced a brief but furious fight, during which he heard Jez say, "You do realize he'll take that as flirting, right?" The look on his face made it all worthwhile, Jessie said as he got dunked again. Finally, they both surfaced facing each other. Truce? Rye splashed him, but then took the offered hand. Truce! He splashed her with his other. Hey, I thought it was a truce. It is. We're even now. You two look beautiful, Jez said as they waded out, water puddling underneath them at a furious rate. Jay grabbed Rye and the pair struck a pose. Why, thank you, he said brightly. Maybe you two should be a couple. Aw, but we're so cute and Jessie slapped a hand over his mouth. For the love of the gods, please, please do not finish that sentence. He grinned and pried it off. Promise. Cross my heart. Hope to die. Good. She turned away to wade in further. Jez was the only one to catch the mischievous spark. Fluffy, he finished. Jessica turned on him. He only needed one look at her face and sprinted out of the water to cower behind Duncan. Help! She's gonna kill me! Damn straight! Oh, like I'm gonna help you. I swear I know your name. It's Duncan. Jessie continued to advance. Congratulations, but it is so not worth facing her wrath. You are a traitor to all humankind, Jay pronounced, backing further. Stay back! I'm warning you! Or what? I'll, tell Beau on you. Beau would probably laugh and tell me good job. Well, it's no good then. His gaze darted around before he dropped to his knees in supplication, ignoring the attempts by the others to stifle howls of laughter. I do hereby promise to never try and flirt with you again, unless under pain of death or severe duress or deprivation. He struggled as she continued towards him, stopping a step away. Will always be nice to puppies and paint rainbows in your honor? He favored her with his very best winning smile. She regarded him and then snorted. Fine, but I promise you that the next time, she wagged a finger in his face. Yes, ma'am, understood, ma'am, he said, hastily saluting. She didn't move for another minute, so he stayed on his knees, still a bit nervous. Then she burst into laughter. God's breath, Jay, the look on your face, she trailed off, unable to continue as the giggles increased. He rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment as he got to his feet. Now that we've gotten that over and done with, can we go back to swimming? He hesitated. Do I really have to paint rainbows? We'll see, Jay, she managed. Jez managed to contain her laughter better than the other two. She nudged Rye, who was on the ground with her toe. As soon as these two get enough wind back, of course we can. Jay chortled. Sorin made sure the smirk was obvious as he let himself into Vladimir's office. Yes, Sorin? His brother asked, a cautious note to his voice. No doubt he was confused by both the smirk and Sorin's unscheduled visit. Feeling a little sore today? He asked, with a deliberate drop of his gaze. Vladimir flushed as Sorin spotted Annie appear silently in the doorway from the corner of his eye. I don't know what you're talking about. That fairly impressive black eye and the way you're sitting tells me otherwise. You let Ren get you in the eye? I didn't let the prince do anything. Ah, right. Of course not. You're just too damn focused on pummeling the hell out of him to remember that he can hit back. Is there something you want? Vladimir asked darkly. Sorin shrugged and perched on the edge of his brother's desk. Not really, he lied, studying the older man. He wondered if it would be possible to bring his brother back from the edge. He still had flashes at times of the Vlad Sorin remembered from childhood, of the boy who had always had his back. Then why are you here? No reason in particular. No reason in particular, Vlad echoed, raising an eyebrow. Why did you beat up Ren? Why? You're really asking me why? His brother stared at him like Sorin had lost his mind. How can you ask that? It's obvious he's screwing with her. As Vladimir struggled to find the words he wanted, Sorin couldn't, in good conscience, call them the right words. Sorin saw his sister shift. Although he was fully aware of her presence in the doorway, Vlad seemed oblivious, his focus on Sorin. He debated alerting Vlad to the fact she was there, but a part of him wanted Vlad to dig the hole he was starting, thought his sister should hear it. He wasn't sure where exactly that part of him even came from, although he suspected it had to do with the way he caught Ren watching Annie as he bandaged the prince's foot up. Ren meant every word of what he'd said to Annie the evening before. Sorin was certain. He's brainwashing her! Vlad settled on, before Sorin could fully finish his train of thought. The younger brother stared at him, where his jaw was slack. That skunk has her believing in love and faith and all that shit when she should know better. Who says they aren't possible? Sorin's stomach clenched as a fresh pool of memories spread out around him. His brother's eyes were wild. I do. No, that's Edward talking, Sorin said coolly. You can't say he was never right. He let out an incredulous laugh. I can't? Vlad, I know you lived with him for 4 years after I left, but even you can't have sunk so far as to believe a word that ever crossed Edward's lips, especially about something he so obviously knew nothing about. He never loved anything, not even her mother for all his words. If he had, he would have done more to keep her alive when Annie was born, and not let her waste away to nothing. He didn't dare flick his gaze towards Annie, noticing only after the fact that he'd used her nickname, filing that away for later contemplation. What do you know about it, Sorin? His brother asked scornfully. Sorin resisted the urge to hit Vlad, forcing his fists to unclench in his lap. Far more than you know, he said quietly, holding his gaze. He thought he'd gotten through, could see the energy start to bleed out of Vlad, saw the question in his eyes. Then his brother grabbed hold of his anger with both hands again. That doesn't change the fact he's using her. Are you sure it's not us using her, even with her tacit approval? How in the God's name can you take his side, Sorin? Have you forgotten who he is? Have you forgotten who we are? I've forgotten nothing, but I also think I see a lot clearer than you do right now, Vlad. The use of the nickname didn't even register, which was not a good sign. It was a sound idea. Get things moving, get people used to us, and then use the prince as a final strike to consolidate our hold on the throne. But it wasn't supposed to be at the expense of our sister. It's not, Sorin said flatly. I talked to Ren last night before you beat the shit out of him. I laid it out simply and told him if he even thought about trying to play Anika, I would personally make sure that the rest of his life was a painful, painful mess. He promised me he wouldn't. Vlad opened his mouth, but Sorin didn't want to hear it and spoke over him. I realized something last night, lying in bed. Ren's not like us. He wasn't raised like us. He clearly knows right from wrong, but understands the gray too. He's a good man, despite what we've done to him, and if he says he cares for our sister, then he's telling us the truth. He could no more use her than I could march out of this castle, find the freedom fighters, and defeat them single-handedly. Haven't you seen the fondness in him towards Anika for a long time? I have, even if I wouldn't let myself acknowledge it until last night. It just took him this long to figure it out. Vlad was already shaking his head. That man wants something, so he's pretending to feel for Annie. Of course he wants something. He wants to be free. But that doesn't mean he's lying about Anika, Sorin said dryly. But his brother either didn't hear him or deliberately ignored him. I say our hold on the country is strong enough. Sorin stared at him, unable to tear his eyes away, suddenly hyper-aware of Annie's presence at the door. Don't, Vlad, don't say it, please don't say it, he thought, as strongly as he could, but nothing was going to stop those words. We should just kill him and do it ourselves. For several gut-clenching moments, the office went quiet, the only sound Vladimir's heavy breathing, utterly wound up from his tirade. You will not touch Ren, Annie said in a quiet, steady voice. That in of itself was the scariest thing Sorin could hear, but he unfroze, able to look at their sister and see the disappointment vying with the real fury on her face. You touch him and I will kill you. Annie, Vladimir started, actually noticing her unnerving calm. No. Her voice cracked, emotions finally getting through. No, 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 she said, voice raising in pitch with each syllable. You do not get to talk to me. Not right now. Maybe never. You, she trailed off, pressing her lips together, the right adjective plainly not coming to her. She stood in the doorway a second longer, trembling, before spinning and sprinting from the room. Annie, wait! Vladimir bellowed, skidding to a stop in the doorway. Annie said nothing in reply as her footsteps faded from hearing. Sorin glanced down at his lap, vaguely surprised to find his hands clenched freshly. You deserved that and more for what you said. Vladimir dropped his forehead against the door jamb with an audible thud. It's true, he said, but the words held no weight. It's not, and we both know it. Vlad, maybe it's time you took a breather. I don't need a vacation. We can't afford a vacation, he said, not moving. I don't think you can afford not to have one, Sorin said carefully. You're falling apart at the seams, Vlad. Take Annie and go to... He cast about in his mind for a suitable normal vacation destination. The beach or something. His brother huffed out a laugh. The beach, Sorin? Honestly? It was good to hear him sound at least a bit like himself again, although Sorin didn't like the weariness that tugged at his frame and voice. It was the first thing that came to mind and seemed properly removed from Oakbridge. I can hold things down here for a few days. Get your head screwed on correctly, take a few deep breaths, and come back. Vlad pushed himself off the wall. I'm fine, Sorin. No, you're not. He received a disgusted look for that. Don't give me the none of us are fine spiel. I don't want to hear it. Some of the heat was back, so Sorin merely held up his hands in supplication. I wasn't going to, he said, holding his brother's gaze as he finally straightened off of the desk. What I will say is this. What you did here was as bad, in its own way, as most of the things Edward did. Vladimir opened his mouth to protest. Don't bother. Think about it. Everything Edward did was for his own gain, usually at the expense of others. Even the mere idea of killing Ren is exactly that, and you know it. He walked to his brother and touched him on the shoulder. Get your head on straight, Vlad, before you destroy not only what little is left of our family, but before it gets us all killed. Then, using his shoulder, he pushed Vlad out of the way and strode from the room, well aware that a certain level of shock prevailed on the other man's face. As he headed for his own office, a strange thought crossed his mind. If I gave you Annie years ago, then you just gave her back to me. It was somewhat comforting, too.